Hello and welcome to More Movies Weekly number 17. My name's Greg Fisher, this legend sitting next to me is David Roberts, and we're here to talk to you about film, cinema, movies, all that kind of stuff. If you're joining us for the first time, welcome to the podcast. If you're a returning viewer, hey, thanks for coming back. We love to see you. How you doing, Dave?
I'm pretty good, sir. I'm pretty good. And how are you?
I'm not too bad. Could be worse, could be better. It's a bit in the middle this week, but we're going to crack on with it anyway because we've got loads of stuff to talk about. So let's get on with the show. So this week we have been watching a fantastic film from 1974 called Thunderbolt and Lightfoot. It's a bit of a classic. It stars Clint Eastwood, Jeff Bridges. It's also got Geoffrey Lewis and George Kennedy in it. It's a very, very famous film in terms of, being a classic 70s Clint Eastwood number. It was directed by Michael Cimino, who is probably best known for his work on The Deer Hunter. Great American director there. This was his debut film. So as we have spoke about on the podcast here over several episodes over the past couple of months, people's debut films tend to be a little bit, they have fantastic elements, but they also have elements as well that are maybe telling that they are debut features. This is no exception, but it is a great film. Dave, you hadn't seen it before. I insisted you watch it, being that avuncular type of person that I am, and so you gotta see it, man. I always loved Thunderbolt and Lightfoot. I always had a special place in my heart for those because some of the Clint Eastwood movies I can take them or leave them, but Thunderbolt and Lightfoot was a special one. I think because although it wasn't Jeff Bridges' first film, it was the film that sort of broke him. It was the film that sort of propelled him to stardom, so to speak. And I just found his performance in it is really fantastic. It is a Clint Eastwood vehicle. It's a Clint Eastwood production. It's a Malpaso production, which is his production company. Cimino, debut director, first time out of the stable for him. Wouldn't be the last. He is a great director. And there's something about the film that smacks of the era. It is, in a sense, a new Hollywood film, which wasn't typical of Clint Eastwood films of the 70s. So in that way, I find it's kind of a unique Clint Eastwood picture. So just to briefly go over the story, at the start, we see Clint Eastwood, who appears to be a preacher or a priest, because you get these lovely shots at the beginning of this church in the middle of nowhere, all these expansive vistas, and Clint Eastwood's character is given a sermon. So straight away you're thinking, hang on, this is a Clint Eastwood film and he's a priest. What? He's usually a cop or a sheriff or a cowboy or a badass, and he's up there in this pulpit and he's giving a sermon. So you're thinking, geez, what's going on here? But it doesn't take long until the bullets start flying. And there's some crazy hitman trying to blast him in the middle of the church. And he escapes into the field. He runs off into this field. So you're thinking, oh, what's going on here? Why is this guy shooting at a priest? There must be more to it. And then he bumps into Jeff Bridges' character, who is Lightfoot. His name's Lightfoot. And he's just stole a car. We've just seen him briefly basically go into a car dealership. He sits in a really nice Trans Am car. The guy sort of says to him, I don't think you can handle a car like this. Is almost tempting him to buy it, and then he just just drives off like, this is my car now. But he bumps into Clint Eastwood almost quite literally, because he ends up bashing into that guy who's been trying to kill Clint Eastwood. So the two of them get together. And there we have the start of a great buddy movie, also a great road movie. What else should I say about it that sets it up? Maybe you want to take over. I feel like I'm doing all the work here.
That's it. I think that sets it up. The setup for going on a journey together of discovery.
They are criminals. We should say they are career criminals.
Yeah, career criminals. It's a very interesting film. It was inspired by Easy Rider. Clint Eastwood seen Easy Rider and wanted to make a film.
Absolutely, that's what I mean about it being new Hollywood.
in New Hollywood, and so it was very much his attempt at that to come together with this. And it's a great film, it's a great road movie, and but even it's great action. But beyond all that story and action, ultimately the core charm of the entire film is that it's a character piece.
Yeah,
it's about Clint and Jeff. And their performances are fantastic. Jeff steals the show, and it's amazing how young he is to steal the show.
Yeah.
But their relationship that is like brothers or father and son, or like some kind of mentor that starts cold and gets warmer with each other is. Well, it's funny.
It starts cold because Clint Eastwood is always that cold guy, isn't he? He's got no emotion. He's a tough guy. He's like doesn't have any friends. He doesn't have any commitments to anyone but himself. But Jeff is so tenacious in wanting to hang out with him, wanting to be his friend. He does warm Clint up. You're absolutely right. It sort of warms up, and Clint does warm to him. By later on in the picture, he's like very protective of him and stuff. So
exactly, and the journey you're going on with them, and that's the real. You could forget everything else, and that's the bit that is interesting.
Yeah,
and ultimately, there's a sad ending to that relationship.
Yeah,
and it's much like Midnight Cowboy. I was sat at the end, tears in my eyes, going.
That's it, man. First time you see it, you just don't. In a sense, it sounds terrible, but you'd rather Clint got croaked it and Jeff gets away with the money, and you think, oh well, Clint, you're a bit older, you've had more of a life, and
it's so sad
you
because
finally met your match. But
at that moment, you're like, Clint's finally come round. They are really together at this point.
Yeah.
They finally kind of found each other, really, because
he even goes and buys the white Cadillac.
Yeah,
that Jeff's character has been fantasizing about. And in that sense, it is exactly like Midnight Cowboy, because by the end of Midnight Cowboy, Jon Voight's character is really warmed to the Dustin Hoffman character.
Yeah. And
so it's very similar in that way.
It is very similar. And I think as well, you're thinking both these characters, at the start of the film, as we kind of get to introduce them, are loners. They're people have been wandering around, not really knowing what to do in life.
Drifters.
And finally found each other.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of beauty of it. It's like, oh, finally these guys have found each other, and that can, make themselves better. And then it's kind of all ripped away, and it's heartbreaking. And
it's the ending it needs, though. For them to just drive off in that Cadillac, everything's fine at the end. It just wouldn't be the same film.
But that's what they do now, I would argue, and it would ruin it.
Exactly. Whereas you need that bittersweet ending. It's more true to life. It's, just as people attain what they have been seeking, and then it's all taken away from you. The rug's pulled out from under you, and it's, it's very much like life.
Yeah.
But like you say, Jeff Bridges, what a performance. This was his sort of breakthrough picture. And I remember seeing an interview with him where he was, he was full of vim and vigor, and he was trying to prove himself, and he's working with this established star, Clint Eastwood, in this big picture. And he's trying to do, take after take after take. And Eastwood apparently is one of these guys, he just likes to do one take, maybe two, if you need it.
Yeah, 2 or 3 takes, and then off,
Yeah, apparently Bridges I want to try another take, I want to try this, I want to try that. And to be fair, he said Clint Eastwood was really understanding about it, and obviously thought a lot of him, and he says, well, let's let the kid do another one, and that kind of thing. He was just like, he just let him have it.
Nice.
It is nice, because that ultimately produced that larger-than-life, wonderful performance from Bridges. He lights up the screen. As soon as you see him, he's got those leather pants on. He's thrown his jacket over his shoulder. He's got this swagger. He's got the blonde hair. He's got the youthful, cheeky look about him. And you just think, who is this guy? Who is this character? I want to know more about this guy. And like I say, within 2 minutes, he's ripping the car off.
And ultimately, Jeff, very young and handsome here, but also a fantastic woman in the film.
That scene where he says, well, I'd take a shot at myself. He looks in the mirror and he catches himself. You sexy bitch.
I was thinking,
just like, brilliant.
That looks pretty good for a man and woman's clothing, doesn't it?
He certainly has good legs, doesn't he?
Yes, exactly.
Oh, you sexy bitch. I'd even go out with you myself.
I mean, there are elements that anchor it to the time. That whole scene near the start where they pull the women, he takes the women back. I think Catherine Bach is one of them. She was like in the Dukes of Hazzard series later on. Daisy Duke. She was famous for being Daisy Duke. Very attractive, like supermodel type. And anyway, they take these two. Jeff takes the both of them back, doesn't they? And it's like one for you, one for me. And there's that whole scene, to be honest, rewatching that back in a modern context, looking at it, it was very dated. But, it wasn't terrible either. I've seen much worse of those sort of scenes from years later in the 80s. So it wasn't awful. It was just a bit
of both. It was a bit of kind of, there's a bit of realism to it, but then there's a bit of, it's a little bit awkward. But it's reflective of the time. And I think there's a lot in the film that's reflective of time. And it's quite a strange one because you're kind of like just post-60s, just starting 70s. So it's in between this kind of Americana feel. And it's very pretty looking and lots of interesting things.
I see it as a Western as well because they are drifters. They are ex-war veterans. So it's like that trope of Westerns. They fought in the Civil War and now they're in the Badlands of the Wild West and they've become outlaws. And it's kind of like championing that whole American ideal of the outlaw, the tough guy, all of this sort of stuff. The beloved rogue, in a sense. There's some very nice cinematography in the film. I think some of those shots are really beautiful. Some of the vistas, as I say at the start, it really sets the tone. You've got all that Montana background, with the mountainous sort of forestry and a really nice kind of sunny look to the picture. There's some really nice shots in there where you can tell Cimino's really trying to prove his salt as a director as well.
Yeah, and I think he did a very good job of that because it's quite an expansive film and with lots of different visuals.
Yeah.
I mean, the other one to give a massive kind of shout in the film to is George Kennedy, who, as Red, is a real bastard. He really is.
I mean, George Kennedy was one of these actors. He plays a bastard really well. I mean, if you remember him in Cool Hand Luke, at the start, he's like almost the opposite in this because at the start of Cool Hand Luke, he's a real son of a bitch and he's horrible to Luke, Paul Newman's character, but he ends up being his best friend and he loves him, Whereas in this one, he's not very nice at the start, but he kind of warms up a bit and he's all right, even though he's being horrible to Jeff and stuff. But you start to think, well, maybe he's not so bad. And then, no, he is an arsehole. But he plays it so well.
But when he gets his comeuppance with the dog, I was like...
that Doberman. And I love that shot as well where you see the cops looking through that glass door and it's almost like they're going, see what happens, Larry.
Serve yourself
See what happens when you fuck a stranger in the ass. That bit where he finally catches up with them and he's like, in the back of the car when they're having the ice cream. And they take him to that place and they make him get out of the car. And then he has a punch-up with Clint. And straight away, Clint just starts socking him. He's like, dodges a punch and wellies him in the back of the head. I was just thinking, you're in trouble here, Red. Clint's going to box your ears for you.
Don't want to mess with Clint. He has to be the tough one.
Yeah.
Clint's not dying.
No, exactly. Clint Eastwood doesn't die. I don't think... Has he ever died in a picture? He probably has, but I can't
Probably
recall.
has, but yeah.
It's probably just
rare.
once,
Yeah.
But I mean, a classic film. So glad you've seen it now. And really even more glad you enjoyed it,
Yeah, I think it's very enjoyable. There's this bit you could kind of go, well, trim this or tighten that. But I think it's a really great film. And for a first film as well, terrific. One of the best first films, really, I've come across, actually.
But there we go. Another one under your belt. You can add that to your watch list. It's, another classic there. If you're a youngster and you haven't seen Thunderbolt and Lightfoot, you might want to check it out. It's a great buddy movie. It's a great road movie. If that's not your thing, what the fuck are you doing listening to us talking about it, man?
Exactly. Highly recommended. Okay, and so also this week we had the conclusion to the Fear Street trilogy over on Netflix. Fear Street Part 3, 1666. We've, of course, in the last 2 weeks covered Part 1, 1994, and Part 2, 1978. And we now come to the end of it. We finally get revealed who is Sarah Fear, what is all this about, what's the witchcraft, etc. So we've checked it out. I really enjoyed this. I thought this was the strongest of the bunch myself. I thought it obviously requires the first two for this to even work, obviously, but I thoroughly enjoyed it. What did you think of it?
Yeah, I enjoyed it too. I thought it was a great conclusion to the trilogy. I was a bit surprised at first when it knocks you back to 1666, and we've got the actors from 1994 playing the characters in 1666. So I was kind of like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
But I just went with it, as you do. You think, okay. Yeah. I mean, to be honest, a bit of that stuff at the start, walking through the village and, all of that, they were saying that thing to each other about, and now the full moon rises or something like this. And I was just like, what is this? What's going on? But I soon got past all that, and it gets into it, and it gets its claws into you again. And you do want to find out what's what, and you do want to find out what's going to happen. I did enjoy it. To be honest with you, when it gets halfway through and it goes part 2, and then it gets us back to 1994, I was kind of relieved.
Yeah.
Because I felt like
it came at the right time.
That's what I wanted it to happen as well. If it had been the whole movie in 1666, and then right at the last 2 minutes they cut back to 1994 and went the end, then I wouldn't have been happy with that. But the fact that it did, and then it chopped forward, I thought, I think they did. They did it.
And
they brought us back to the mall, and
it was perfect timing in the movie to do it, and I think they got that spot on, and that made it work. I think you're right. If it carried on, it would have been thingy, but it was perfect. You just got enough from it, and then you're back to the excitement to finish it all up. And it kind of actually perked me up because I was watching it. I was kind of, and would you do halfway through a film? You kind of like in that state, and then it hit that moment. I was like, oh,
it was the same.
Bolts you up,
it was almost just like, you think, okay,
we're going to find out now what's going on, and I found that really exciting.
I thought so too. I thought this is great now we know everything about it. We know it's the sheriff and whatnot, and it's going to be like, right, let's see what happens. Let's see who survives, basically.
Yeah. The biggest thing is that, as we mentioned, it tied everything together, and that's what I was happy about. I didn't want it to get to the end and be sitting there going, "Oh, fuck's sake, that's thingy." But it did. It bound everything together.
As a standalone film, it's not as good as the other two, I don't think. But as a conclusion to the trilogy, it's a very good film. Yeah. As you say, it's completely dependent on the other two, but. Like we mentioned when we've been talking about it over the last few weeks, it is event cinema in the sense that this is, we're going to bring these films out one after the other. They're all connected. They're all tightly sort of tied together. And, it is a fresh take on that whole slasher genre. And they did pack a lot in. They tried to do tributes to a lot of things, and successfully for on the most part. So I was happy with it. I was happy with how it ended. I felt satisfied at the end. I thought, it was a good thing. I enjoyed the second one the most. First one was excellent, and the third one was a great conclusion. So no complaints from me.
And the hand getting ripped off was...
Oof, it reminded me of RoboCop, bang, when he gets his hand blown off. And that always disturbed me because I watched RoboCop when I was too young to watch it, really. And that bit where he gets murdered is so bad. It is so violent and horrible. And he gets his hand blown off by these sadist, sick puppies, really sick people.
Well, give the man a hand!
And when she got her hand severed in this, I was thinking of the same thing. It happened in Game of Thrones as well. Jamie Lannister's hand gets cut off in this one scene, and it's like, and you just think, oh my God, people losing a hand is horrible. Like, it's just like,
It was the way it was like in two parts. Like, it was like the first bit of
she had to rip it off, didn't she? The rest
and then
of it
ripped off the second part.
Like,
that was
27 hours. Just like, you can hear the sinew and the bone sort of, horrible.
Because I'm used to hands getting cut off, but when it's a clean cut, it's like, okay. But when it's like in that kind of gruesome way.
But there was one thing in it that I found that was a little bit, it was a bit silly in terms of production design, but when it flashed back to her holding the bone of that hand, the bony hand seemed to be giant, but it's the same actress holding it, and you think, it should be the same size as your hands. It was your hand, so to speak. And it was this almost like a joke hand, like a joke skeleton hand that you might buy for Halloween and stick on your door. But this is a minor criticism. I wasn't going to be turning off the movie because of that. It was just a little bit of what happened to that hand there, you know? Sort of got bigger over the years. Yeah, very silly, absolutely ridiculous stuff, but, you know, great fun.
But yeah, exactly. It worked. Likeable characters, great story, tied up in the end. It delivered exactly what it set out to do. So, in other news this week, we've seen that Kevin Smith has announced he's starting shooting Clerks 3 next month, with all of the main cast returning. How long is it since the second film now? It's been quite a long time.
10, 15 years.
10, 15 years. Quite a while. So another one of these films that they're bringing back again, way too long after the original. 2006 was Clerks 2, so 15 years. First one was 94, so that was 12 years before then. So it's about right. I mean, the poor guy had a heart attack the other year, and he's only just sort of got himself back into shape. He does a great podcast as well. When they brought out Clerks 2, as I say, it had been 12 years since the first one, and the first one was such a cult indie comedy classic of the 90s. When he was, you know, he'd done a load of films, Jay and Silent Bob films and whatnot, and Chasing Amy and all this sort of stuff, and then I'll go back to my most popular film and make a sequel, and it was kind of like, but Clerks 2 was quite good. It was quite funny that I remember it. So there's a part of me thinking, well, I'll reserve judgment and I will watch it because there's a potential for it to be a great comedy trilogy. Possibly.
Let's just give him a chance, you know?
Give it a chance.
I'd say so, yeah. I mean, you know, some of those other films are kind of like, I mean, I really love Mallrats. Have you ever seen that? Mallrats with Jason Lee?
Yeah.
That was really funny. Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, a little story for you about that one. I went to see it at the cinema, and at the very first scene, you've got it's Jay and Silent Bob standing outside the liquor store or wherever they are, the convenience store, and it comes right in on Jay, and he's doing this rap like he's like, motherfucker, fuck, motherfucker, shit, lick your pussy, motherfucker, and he's saying all of this stuff that's like really like. You know, you never heard so many effing and jeffing swear words in your life. This old couple that must have been in their 60s got straight up out of their seats, grabbed their coats, and walked out. and the film had only been on 30 seconds, and they were like, you could see on their faces as well, it was like, this is not for us. And I just thought, what were you doing? What did you expect? What did you think was going to happen? This is Kevin Smith. Yeah. I've wondered what happened with that conversation on the way home in the car. It was either
awkward
or just, complete silence. But, there you go. At least, you know, Kevin Smith was saying straight from the off, this is what you're going to get. Okay, so in other movie news, I noticed as well that Ari Aster, the film director, is working with a Pulitzer Prize-winning screenwriter who's called Michael J. Jackson, I think. So it's not, obviously...
Not wacko.
Not wacko. Well, it wouldn't be anyway, would it? Unless he was like, back from the dead and suddenly writing films. But yeah, he's working on a new script. It is, at the moment, untitled. People don't really know anything about it. It was just one of those that I seen, Ari Aster's...
Another project coming up, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I really liked Midsommar. I thought it's one of the best films I've seen in recent years. It's a Marmite film because some people don't like it, but I thought it was brilliant. Really brilliant.
Yeah, I thought it was breathtaking. I think watching that, I was like, this is one of the best creepy, horror-y kind of films I've seen in a very long time. It is The Wicker Man, basically the same story, pretty much, but it does its own thing with it, and it's a totally modern and fresh rendering of that story, so I loved it. Hereditary... I wasn't so keen on. It's a very impressive film. It looks great. There's some incredible visuals in it and performances, but I felt that the story was a little bit too all over the place, and it certainly wasn't as succinct as Midsommar. It wasn't a tight, piece like that was. But again, a Marmite film because some people love it. But lots of people I've heard going, it's brilliant.
They do, yeah. So. And I can see why, because there is a lot of stuff in there that is like, wow.
Very exciting director, Ari Aster, and I'm very interested to see what he comes up with next, absolutely.
Yeah. brilliant. It's like I put him up there with Jordan Peele and with Robert Eggers. They're like the best sort of, I don't know, the best kind of like horror directors of the moment, I would say, of the Hollywood sort of crowd. Of the three of them, I really love Robert Eggers.
Yeah.
Because The Witch and The Lighthouse are fantastic films. He's currently working on his latest project, The Northman, I think it's called, which is about Vikings. But it'll definitely have some sort of spooky, crazy, horrific element to it. You just know it will. Just like The Lighthouse, like I was saying to you, The Lighthouse is not specifically a horror film, but some of the stuff in it is horrific.
That's it. That's it. Well, and that's usually when it's best, when it's not straight out horror, it does something else. Yeah. But that's what makes you go, or whatever.
That's what gets under your skin,
Exactly.
I had to admit, Jennifer had gotten under my skin.
So we just wanted to give a big shout out to some of our supporters. Lenny Wanser, AB, Chris Hartman. Chris Hartman and Jen B.
Thank you, guys.
We want to give you a big thank you for buying us a coffee over on buymeacoffee.com. We really appreciate it. That got us some double lattes with mint syrup this week, which was delicious.
Absolutely delicious.
I'm going to need a cup of coffee.
Thank you very much, guys, for donating. You too can donate to us at buymeacoffee.com. The link's in the description below. If you're on Patreon, maybe you want to become a patron. We also have that running at the moment. And we're looking for more patrons, to be honest. So if you're over on that one and you fancy supporting us there, links are in the description below. Also, to mention, the tweet of the week this week comes from our main man, Grandmaster Skip Bolden, our favourite person on Twitter. This guy has been so kind to us. When we first started out, he tweets so much stuff about films, the kind of stuff we're into. We're always learning stuff from Skip, and the kind of stuff he tweets is just like on the pulse for us. Anyway, his main account, which had like something like 35,000 followers, has been suspended by Twitter. Anyway, the tweet of the week comes from his second account, which basically tells people what's happened and encourages them to follow him there. So if you are a fan of films and very super cool people, you need to be following Skip Bolden. There's his super cool tweet with the dude, all right, Lebowski. So give Skip a follow, show him your support, buy him a coffee at buymeacoffee.com. He's on there too, man. Go buy Skip a coffee.
Absolutely. It's really frustrating when Twitter take down these accounts. So that's it. Get over there and follow Skip, guys.
Cool. So also, we've been busy on our own website this week. So we've got our regular This Week in Film History article, which I thought I'd write this week, give you a break from it, Dave. We've got some great births, deaths, events, releases, that kind of thing. Links in the description below as always. Get onto the website moremovies.co.uk and check out that article and all the others with it if you like that sort of thing.
Absolutely. And also over on the website, we've got a new article up, our top 9 disaster movies. We picked out 9 disaster movies from over the years of different types, natural disasters, etc., and laid them all out with all the information and some little factoids and nuggets there. So
I do love a good disaster movie.
Oh, absolutely.
What's your favourite one?
For me, it's always been the Poseidon Adventure.
I was going to say that too. Snap. It's got to be, hasn't it? It's just like got so many stars of the time in it.
But yeah, that article is over on our website and the link is in the description below.
Fantastic. I also did a review for Palmer, which came out last year, I think. Stars Justin Timberlake. Really, really good drama film. I really loved it. It was brought out on Apple TV, I think. So if you want to hear my thoughts on Palmer, you can either watch it here on the YouTube channel, Film in 5 Review, or you can go over to the website, moremovies.co.uk, and read it there if you don't want to have to listen to my stupid voice. And
really great review though.
And if you don't want to listen to my voice or see my silly face, what the fuck are you doing watching this?
What are you doing here? Yeah. But it's a really great review of a very touching film, very powerful film.
Oh, I loved it. I thought it was great.
Also, you can join us on social media at More Movies For You. That's across the board: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, all of those things. You know where they all are. Where you can see things like the movie of the day, which is something like this.
Today's movie of the day is by British director Guy Ritchie. It's not Snatch, it's not Lock, Stock and Two Smoking Barrels, it's not that piece of shit he did with his then-wife Madonna, Swept Away. Awful film, don't ever watch it. It is Revolver, one of his best films, and if you haven't seen it, you really do need to, as soon as you can. It's a rental copy. Oh my god, what day is this? Is Blockbusters even still open?
So there we have it for another week, my friend. That wraps up number 17. Really enjoyed talking to you about all this stuff. So glad you watched Thunderbolt and Lightfoot. It's really cool. Let's come back next week. Let's do some more What Do You Say?
Sounds good. Sounds very good.
Sounds great to me too. Thanks for joining us. Hope to see you again. And remember, please keep watching more movies.
That's it for this video. Let us know your thoughts in the comments down below. And remember to like, share and subscribe right here on YouTube. For more film reviews and articles, join us on our website moremovies.co.uk. Or join us on social media at More Movies For You. That's on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, all across the board. You know the score. If you enjoy our content, please consider supporting us at buymeacoffee.com or join us on patreon.com. Links in the description down below. And for more filmtastic content, click one of the buttons on screen now.